Hello everyone, and welcome back to my chatty, sassy channel here on YouTube, where we talk about all things luxury, be it luxury travel, luxury fashion, or life's luxuries in general. And today I'm talking a little bit about luxury travel and discussing why it is that I have the Rimowa suitcases that I do. Earlier in November, I made a video that was talking about my best purchases of 2024. And in that video, I said I thought I was done purchasing things. And then I went to Boston and it turns out I wasn't done purchasing things because I bought a Rimowa suitcase for my check-in bag. Now, I already have the Polycarb Cabin Plus for my carry-on bag. My husband got me this last year for Christmas, and I'll talk about this bag some in this video, specifically talking about some of the features and why I didn't feel that these features were important for me in my checked bag. And then for the checked bag, I was looking at the Trunk Plus, and the Check-In Large. And so I'm going to discuss why I didn't go with the two that I didn't, and what it was about the Check-In Large that sold me. Now the Check-In Large, very large suitcase. I'm not going to be holding this up the whole time that I talk. It is large and it is heavy. But a couple of features to note are the locks on this, and the fact that I went with silver, as well as that the two halves, it is very much a clamshell, so it comes together, folds fully apart, and those are equal half clamshells. So why is it that I decided to stick with Rimowa? Well, first off, using my Cabin Plus suitcase, I absolutely have loved taking that one through the airport. It glides like butter. It is so nice. It functions so well. I love the compression sides that are in that suitcase. And yeah, like, I like the fact that I'm carrying a status suitcase. It's fun for me, but also they are a very, very reliable, reputable brand. If I love that suitcase so much, then why did I go with the aluminum instead of going with the polycarb? I want to talk about this first, and then I'll talk about why I picked the size that I did, and then I'll touch a little bit on color as well at the end. So the reason I decided to go with aluminum over polycarb is that for the aluminum suitcases, those are going to have a lifetime warranty. At least when I bought my, well, not when I bought, when my husband bought my polycarb suitcase, that one only comes with, it's either a 5 or a 7-year warranty on it. And I think that that's still the case for the polycarb, because polycarb is plastic. The chances of it breaking over time are a lot higher than a metal version. And so when looking at that, that was definitely a factor for me, is that if I'm going to be spending $2 grand, which is a lot of money on a suitcase, but if I'm going to be spending around $2 grand on a suitcase, I want it to be a suitcase that's going to last me the rest of my life. And with having Rimowa's guarantee, lifetime guarantee on it, I'm only going to need this suitcase for the rest of my life. I've only got to buy this one suitcase, and then I'm done buying luggage for the rest of my life. Another factor, when I was looking at my carry-on bag, I was very gun shy about the price of the aluminum. The polycarb price was a lot lower. It made me feel a lot better. That was because I'd never bought a suitcase that cost that much before. After having that suitcase, I now realize that if something were to happen to my Rimowa suitcase now that is my carry-on bag, so my polycarb version, I would replace it with the aluminum. The reason I would do that is a couple of things. One of the big selling features with the polycarb is that it has a zipper that goes all the way around the bag, and then the zipper points just pop into a little lock. And let me show that to you. When locked, the zippers will just pop in right there. Something to know about me is that I am not an overpacker. And so I've come to find out using that suitcase, I don't need the extra wiggle room that the zipper gives me. If anything, the extra wiggle room that the zipper gives me makes using that slightly annoying, and that's because getting these zippers to pop into place when that suitcase is not totally full is annoying. Trying to get it to zipped closed when it wants to fold in on itself because you don't have it so full that the zipper part is expanded all the way is a little bit annoying. The other thing about having the zipper is that even with the TSA lock on it, very easy to stick a pin in there and pop a zipper. If I'm looking at a bag that is going to be out of my hands as the way that a checked bag would be, I don't want that extra risk. Additionally, I don't need the extra space at all. And in all honesty, because the closure is so strong on the aluminums, that's going to help compress that stuff down. You really don't have to worry about the extra space thing because the suitcase will help compress those fluffy sweaters, those fluffy jackets, the pants and the underwear and the socks. It'll help compress all that down so you don't really have to worry about that. Another factor that a lot of people typically are concerned about when it comes to the polycarb versus the aluminum is weight. Depending on the size you go with, that's not going to be an issue. I went with the Check-In Large as my suitcase. I brought it home. What I felt was pretty fully packed. Now, I could have definitely shoved more stuff in there, but it was still only 37 pounds. It was well under that 50-pound weight limit, even being metal. And that sort of moves us into talking about why I went with the size that I did. A lot of people, if you are looking online, will tell you to absolutely go with the trunk or the trunk plus because it's more classic. I don't think that's a good enough reason. So there are a few relevant things, in my opinion, to think about when deciding between the Check-In Large versus one of the trunks, either the trunk or the trunk plus. First off, how much space do you actually need and what are you actually bringing with you when you are traveling? Next, how is it that you like to use that suitcase when you are traveling, like your types of transportations, where you get where you're going? And then finally, how does the suitcase actually feel moving beside of you? Now, all of the Rimowa suitcases are going to feel really, really nice, but how they feel next to you is different. A trunk shape is going to be shorter than a traditional check-in. It's going to be wider than a traditional check-in, depth width-wise. That's something to think about. When I was wheeling these around in the store, and they were very nice, they let me wheel these all around all over the store. The trunk and the trunk plus felt very bulky next to my frame. I have a slender frame. I recognize that. I'm a small person. I can still fit in children's size clothing when I need to. Because of that, having that extra bulk sticking out from my side was very, very, very uncomfortable for me. I felt almost exposed. I felt like I was going to run into things. It was not something that I liked walking around with. However, walking around with the Check-In Large, it was very streamlined. It was right beside my side. I felt like it was very close to me, like I wasn't worried about hitting anything with that suitcase. Also, because I am short, I don't even have to use the telescopic handle on that suitcase. I can just use the actual like handheld thing on the top of the suitcase. That's pretty nice. It gives me options, and I like options, but that was something that was not any way influencing my decision, just a nice bonus. However, the way that it felt beside me, having the Check-In Large beside me feel a lot safer, made me very happy that the Check-In Large was what I preferred. Now, when it comes to what you can fit in, the Check-In Large of the three is technically the smallest of the three. This is still a massive suitcase. I will insert a picture of it beside me. It is still a massively large suitcase. You can fit so much stuff in this suitcase. When my husband and I were coming home, we had put basically everything that was in our carry-ons in that bag, plus some more. Our carry-ons were virtually totally empty coming home. And so you can fit a ton in that suitcase. You can fit so much in that suitcase already. The trunk is a little bit bigger space-wise, not massively. It gives you a little bit more wiggle room. The Trunk Plus is ginormous. I'm not sure under what circumstances I could ever fill that suitcase. I mean, I would have to be gone for like a month and have plans to do absolutely no laundry whatsoever, probably, to fill up that suitcase. It's massive. And I know that some people like to say, well, like if you're traveling with shoe boxes or with various boxes, I'm not traveling with boxes. That takes up extra space. That's just silly. If I'm going on a shopping trip and I'm going to be buying stuff, if the boxes are that important to me, I can mail the boxes home. Also, the stuff that I buy, the boxes are not going to be deep enough that it wouldn't fit in the clamshell sides of the Check-In Large, with exception of potentially if I were to get a Birkin in Paris. And if that were to happen, that bag is not leaving my side. That is staying right beside me all the way home on the plane. I have no concerns. It would not be going in my check-in luggage anyway. The other thing is people talk about, well, like you can fold stuff so you can stack it more. That's true, but that's with the trunk because it has a deeper bottom component. But with the Check-In Large, I can stretch stuff out further. I can put garment bags very easily in the Check-In Large without having to fold them. If I were to put a garment bag, my garment bags, and I measured this and I looked at it and I tried it out. If I were to put my regular garment bags inside of the trunk, for some of those garment bags, they would have to be a bit folded. And that might not be the biggest deal in the world, but that to me was very interesting. I also think of that as a way that Rimowa does that so that they can sell you their garment bag and their special packing cubes, which are insanely expensive. I don't think that how you pack is really going to change suitcase to suitcase. I don't think there's that much difference unless you are someone who is bringing specialized equipment. Maybe you are traveling with helmets for some type of motorsport or equestrian sport or skiing. I could then see if you were traveling with something that was bulky like a helmet, why you might need to have a deeper suitcase. I'm not really doing that, so that's not a valid thing for me to consider. I've never had to travel with a helmet, with exception of once when I had to get on a plane to go to a horse show. And that I just had my helmet in my carry-on personal bag and it was totally fine. I didn't need to have my helmet packed in anything. I think that how you like to have your suitcase stored when you get where you're going is a bit more valid. And when you have the trunk, you're able to set the trunk up against the wall, you can fold the lid up, and so it's able to sit there more compact because while it's very deep width-wise when you have it laying down, it's a bit more narrow this way when it's laying down, so it's not going to take up as much floor space. That being said, that's only if you want to have your bag out all the time. If you aren't going to have your bag out all the time, if you're like me and you get that check-in bag, you bring it in and you keep it in the closet and you only pull out stuff maybe once or twice, you have a lot of your clothes hung up, so you aren't really going into that checked bag very often during your trip. Well, in that case, you want the thing that's going to be most out of the way. And this bag, if it were standing up on its wheels for the Check-In Large, is going to be very narrow. So you can easily have it placed against a wall. You can place it in the clothes closet in the hotel room. It's going to be out of the way. It's going to be unobtrusive. And for that, I think that's very, very useful. And so that is also something to think about. Again, I'm not sure either way they're the biggest of things to consider, but something that the sales associate did tell me is that with the Check-In Large, he does know that a lot of people like to place them under the beds in the hotel or the cruise ship that they're on because they're narrow enough that you can do that. Whereas with the trunks, there's no way that it's fitting under things. It's going to probably be out wherever you are. And then there's a little bit of psychology that goes into this decision as well. There's the psychology of the fact that looking at US prices, and US prices, you have the price plus sales tax. When I'm looking at that price, the Check-In Large stays under $2,000. The Trunk and the Trunk Plus are going to be over $2,000. When you're spending a couple grand on a suitcase, when it is actually over that $2,000 price, that psychologically feels very different than saying $1,900, because it's under that level. And I'm not pretending like that $200 potential difference is that big of a deal when you're talking about suitcases that are that expensive. If that is your biggest concern, you might want to rethink if you should really be spending that kind of money on a suitcase. The price shouldn't be the deciding factor. But what the price did is it helps me feel a lot better about the fact that the Check-In Large is the one that I liked best. It was the one that I liked best, and it happened to fall under $2,000. It made it very easy for my husband and I to just purchase it that day. Had I preferred the Trunk or the Trunk Plus, we would have been putting that as probably my Christmas gift, because it crossed that $2,000 threshold. And so that is something to really think about, is how do you feel about that price? Now, again, the fact that I'm going to be using this suitcase for the next 40 years makes that price not so bad, because spending $2,000 now, using it for 40 years, as opposed to potentially having 6 $400, $500 suitcases, maybe even more, maybe even 10 of those suitcases. Well, if you're looking at that, those suitcases end up being more expensive by investing in some of those less expensive suitcases. And so those are things to think about. Is I don't ever think that luxury is an investment, with exception of very, very few pieces that you buy them and you can immediately resell them for more. Luxury is not an investment in terms of getting you more money. Luxury is an investment in terms of making an investment in yourself for things that you are going to use. You can't consider resell in that. So when I talk about the investment that I'm making in that, looking at long term, I will get my money out of it and I will spend less in the long term because of when I have gotten this suitcase. And I think that if you are someone who you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, and even you're in your 40s and you're looking at getting luggage, investing in a piece like that where you know that you're going to get a couple of decades use out of it is worth getting really quality suitcases. I looked at a whole gamut of different brands. I spent months doing research on different brands, trying to find an alternative that I thought would be on par with the quality. And what I found is that really there are only two brands that do aluminum suitcases. Not aluminum cases, but true aluminum suitcases. And that's Rimowa and Tumi. The Tumi ones I think just kind of look a little weird. They just kind of look a little weird to me, and they're basically the same price. Rimowa are also the originals. Rimowa are the ones who started doing the aluminum suitcases to begin with. They have been doing these for so long that I trust Rimowa with my luggage. A lot of other brands that claim to be aluminum suitcases, when you actually look into it, it might have part of the frame is aluminum or the corners are aluminum. But when you get down to it, the actual suitcase itself is still plastic. And I did not want a plastic suitcase. I wanted a metal suitcase because plastic will crack when it breaks. Aluminum is metal. Aluminum might dent, it might bend, but it's going to be a very, very rare thing that is going to actually split the metal on that suitcase. If it has split the metal on the suitcase, you've probably got some bigger problems and some bigger issues going on. And so because of that, I felt much better. Now, I do want to touch a little bit on color. Why I went with the silver in the aluminum. I've talked about why I went with the aluminum, but why I went with the silver specifically. They have a couple of other standard aluminum colors. They have a black, they have a bronze, and then every year they do a specialty aluminum color. This year it's a green that I'm not gonna lie, I kind of thought was a really ugly green. But some people really love that green. That green was not gonna be for me, so I was looking at potentially the black, the bronze, or the silver. The sales associate in Rimowa, when he heard me say that I was probably leaning towards either the bronze or the silver, maybe the black, said, I'm going to be very honest with you, go with the silver, because when these scratch, and inevitably they'll get scratches on them, when they scratch, the black, the bronze, and the color of the year are going to show silver as their scratches. So their scratches are going to be super, super noticeable because it's going to scratch off the color that's painted on the outside. Whereas the silver, it's just more silver. And so it's not as noticeable on those scrapes if you go with the silver. So that is everything that I can think of to discuss with you about these suitcases. If you would like me to do some sort of a short video showing you what fits in my check-in large, I am happy to do that. But for now, this is everything that I can think of. If you have any further questions, make sure to put them down in the comments below. And I hope this video has been really helpful for you if you have been considering getting a Rimowa for your checked luggage, whether it be a trunk or a check-in large. If you are still undecided between the two, hopefully this has persuaded you a bit with my own thinking, or at least given you some things to consider in your decision. With that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, everybody. Bye!